As Douglas was leaving the orphanage, she was suddenly stopped by a woman who held the prestigious position of the principal. This principal warmly thanked her for taking such good care of Anna. She went on to explain how Anna had experienced severe trauma after her parents tragically passed away. Her relatives had neglected her and bullied her, frequently calling her dirty. This cruel mistreatment led Anna to compulsively try to clean herself, even after arriving at the orphanage, as she was convinced she was dirty. However, during her time with Douglas, Anna had completely overcome her trauma. The principal was deeply grateful and wanted to express her heartfelt appreciation to Douglas, acknowledging the positive transformation in Anna's life. Finally, the long-awaited day of the charity party arrived. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation and excitement. Lady Douglas was approached by Ramira, who inquired with a hint of curiosity if the child was coming today. Ramira also confided in Douglas, sharing that her family's financial situation had not been good lately. She emphasized that during such challenging times, it was crucial for people to support each other. Ramira then asked Douglas to follow her instructions closely, promising that if she did as she was told, Ramira's influential father would assist them in their current predicament. Douglas, feeling the weight of the request, asked what exactly she should do. Ramira explained her devious plan. A mischievous maid would steal the Marchioness's valuable necklace, and all Douglas needed to do was place the necklace in the pocket of a common girl named Anna. When Anna was giving her presentation, Douglas was supposed to discreetly cut her pocket with a knife, causing the necklace to fall out in front of everyone. Douglas was left speechless and deeply conflicted after hearing this morally questionable plan. At the event, the atmosphere was vibrant and lively. Everyone was praising Riene's exquisite dress, commenting on how stunning and elegant she looked. Some of the ladies were also gossiping about how this place used to be a gloomy orphanage, but now it was bustling with life, filled with many distinguished guests. Riene graciously welcomed the King of Krija, who was Heath's father. Riene was extremely nervous in the presence of the king, trying her best to maintain composure. The king praised Riene for the excellent arrangements she had made, expressing his happiness that she was so invested in education. He also mentioned that the party had a noble purpose, enhancing its significance. Riene, in an effort to portray a positive image of Heath, told the king that it was Heath's brilliant idea. However, Heath interjected, saying there was a misunderstanding and that the party was planned from beginning to end by Princess Riene. The king, impressed by her dedication and efforts, praised her again before taking his leave. Riene turned to Heath, expressing that she thought she was going to die from nervousness, but Heath was unaware of her internal turmoil. She confided in Heath that it was a good idea to prepare the party according to the king's interests, hoping it would be well received. Heath, curious about her motivations, asked if she did all of this to get into his father's good graces. Riene admitted that she did, explaining that it was her first official event as Heath's fiancée, and she wanted to make a positive impression. She explained that she was trying to make him look good in the eyes of others. Heath realized that this was the reason she had been so busy lately, preparing meticulously for the event. Riene, reflecting on their contractual relationship, questioned if she had been acting too independently without consulting him. She apologized to Heath if her actions made him uncomfortable by planning the party without his input. But Heath, ever understanding, reassured her, saying, "Riene, you don't have to work so hard, and you don't have to lie for my sake." He told Riene that he didn't want his existence to become a burden for her, valuing her well-being over appearances. They were standing very close to each other, and Riene told Heath that he was the best partner ever. Their mutual understanding deepened as they both agreed to help each other and become the best partners they could be. After some time, Anna approached Douglas, noticing her pensive demeanor. She gently asked if Douglas was nervous about the upcoming presentation. Anna, with her usual optimism, tried to motivate Douglas by saying that everything was all right, and that they could do this together. Douglas, trying to hide her own nerves, told Anna that she was not nervous at all and playfully pinched her cheeks, eliciting a giggle from Anna. Anna, smiling brightly, told Douglas that she was going to do great, infusing her with confidence. As they both looked at Ramira, Anna curiously asked if Ramira was the one who had said mean things to Douglas about being dirty. Anna remarked that Ramira looked like someone who would say such hurtful things. Placing her hand gently on Douglas's hand, Anna assured her that she would always be with her and protect her, no matter what happened. Touched by Anna's sincere words, Douglas and Anna hugged each other tightly, drawing strength from their bond. Later, in a secluded room away from the prying eyes of the guests, Ramira asked Douglas if she was ready for their plan. Ramira had managed to get hold of the stolen Marchioness's necklace and reminded Douglas about the intricate plan they had discussed that morning. Ramira expressed her malicious desire to show everyone how dirty and vile these children from the orphanage were, believing it would serve her purpose. She also promised Douglas that if she executed the plan properly, she would be rewarded with something more valuable than the necklace. However, as Ramira was elaborating on the details of the plan, Douglas, with a newfound resolve, firmly refused, saying that she couldn't go through with it. Ramira was shocked by her defiance and demanded to know what she meant by her refusal. Douglas, facing Ramira with unwavering determination, told her that if she planned to do anything foolish to Anna, she would not stand by and let it happen. After delivering this resolute message, Douglas turned and left the room, leaving Ramira seething with anger. Overwhelmed by her rage, Ramira started shouting at Douglas's retreating figure, hurling insults and mean-spirited comments. In her fit of anger, the necklace slipped from her pocket and clattered to the floor. Just as she was about to pick it up, someone approached from behind and asked her what she was doing. Startled and caught off guard, Ramira froze, filled with a sudden sense of fear at being discovered. While Lady Ramira was carefully picking up the fallen necklace from the ground, Esmeralda's mother approached her with a concerned expression. She inquired about what Ramira was doing in that particular spot, noting that the party was about to start and expressing curiosity about Ramira's presence at such a critical time. Esmeralda's mother's gaze fell on the necklace in Ramira's hand, and she realized it belonged to Marchioness Annery. With a tone of familiarity and authority, Esmeralda's mother explained that the necklace was a highly treasured family heirloom, handed down through generations from her great-aunt. It held immense sentimental value to her. Esmeralda's mother then asked Ramira directly why she was in possession of such an important item and proceeded to accuse her, remarking that someone of Ramira's refinement should not be handling someone else's belongings without explicit permission. She conveyed her disappointment, implying that such behavior was beneath someone of her social standing. Attempting to clear her name, Ramira hastily offered an explanation. She claimed that she had merely stumbled upon the necklace and intended to return it to its rightful owner. Esmeralda's mother, however, was not entirely convinced by this explanation. She pointed out that a necklace of such a valuable nature could not simply fall off on its own. Her suspicion grew, and she questioned whether it was possible that the necklace had been stolen and subsequently found by Ramira. In a bid to deflect suspicion, Ramira quickly fabricated a story. She mentioned that one of the children from the orphanage, known for their quick and nimble fingers, might have taken the necklace. She added that the child was so swift that she lost sight of him almost immediately. Esmeralda's mother, although skeptical, decided that immediate action was necessary. She proposed that they should track down the child and hold him accountable for his alleged theft. However, she also recognized that without solid evidence, leaving the scene as it was might lead others to believe that Ramira herself was the thief. Esmeralda's mother, thinking on her feet, devised a plan to resolve the situation. She informed Ramira that she would assist her in framing one of the common children. The idea was to discreetly place the necklace into the pocket of a child and then accuse him of theft. Esmeralda's mother instructed Ramira to get as close as possible to the child to execute the plan effectively. Outside, they noticed Anna sitting with Douglas. Given that the lady in charge of the children was known for her protective nature, Ramira was advised to do whatever it took to make the plan work. At that moment, Killian, hidden behind a tree, overheard the entire conversation. He was growing increasingly frustrated by the number of troublesome individuals surrounding his sister. Although he felt an urge to confront them immediately, he was apprehensive about the risks, particularly since his mother was also present. Killian knew that if his mother discovered his presence at the party, she would undoubtedly cause a commotion to find him. Given that he had been evading home for several weeks, he feared that this time the consequences would be far more severe than a mere scolding. Returning home was akin to surrendering his current lifestyle, which he greatly enjoyed. He cherished the daily exchanges he had with his sister about her various activities and experiences. Killian resolved to avoid his mother and handle the annoying people himself. He noticed a waiter moving through the crowd and decided to take action. With a quick move, he attacked the waiter from behind, taking over his uniform in the process. Meanwhile, Ramira kept a close watch on Anna from a distance, waiting for the perfect moment to slip the necklace into her pocket. She was focused on getting close enough to activate the plan. Ramira knew that if she were caught in the act, she would be framed as the thief. Summoning her courage, she began to run towards Anna. As she did, Douglas noticed her and called out, questioning what she was doing. During this chaotic moment, a waiter, who turned out to be Killian in disguise, accidentally got in Ramira's path. The collision resulted in spilled wine glasses and a wine stain on Ramira's dress. Killian, dressed as a waiter, was navigating the party while contemplating the possibility of kidnapping Ramira. However, his plans were interrupted when he saw his mother standing directly in front of him. Acting quickly, Killian managed to hide himself to avoid detection. The Duke then asked the Duchess to accompany him to meet Riene. Killian was relieved that his father had not asked his mother to leave, as this might have led to his discovery. For his plan to succeed, Killian had to act quickly. He grabbed Heath and led him to a secluded corner. Heath was shocked to see Killian and inquired about his presence, noting that Killian had run away due to what he had heard was a rebellious phase. Killian decided to cut the conversation short and requested Heath's assistance. A short while later, Esmeralda approached her mother, who had summoned her. Esmeralda's mother instructed her to go to Anna, as the child was rumored to have a butter knife in her pocket. Esmeralda was perplexed, wondering why Anna would carry such an item. Her mother speculated that Anna might be intending to play with the knife, but emphasized that it was a dangerous object for a child. Since Esmeralda was the teacher, her mother asked her to gently persuade Anna to hand over the knife. Esmeralda agreed and made her way to Anna. Unbeknownst to Esmeralda, her mother's true intention was to frame Anna for stealing the expensive necklace, thereby making Esmeralda appear as the hero who caught the thief. This was all part of Esmeralda's mother's scheme to elevate her daughter's status and make her the central figure in the unfolding drama. When Esmeralda finally reached Anna and checked her pocket, she was astonished to find the very necklace that belonged to the Marchioness. Esmeralda went to Anna and asked her if she had anything dangerous in her pocket. Rihanna was puzzled as to why Esmeralda was asking this and said there was nothing in her pocket. Rihanna then asked Esmeralda why she was asking, but Esmeralda just smiled and thought that they couldn't ignore this because a knife is a very dangerous thing. Rihanna also said that she had been with Anna for a long time, but Esmeralda insisted that she still wanted to check once. Esmeralda's mother approached Lady Anira and asked if this was the necklace she liked so much. As Esmeralda tried to take the knife out of Anna's pocket, she saw Lady Anira's necklace in Anna's pocket instead. Everyone was shocked, including Esmeralda, who was very surprised to see the necklace there. She suddenly thought that her mother had sent her to Anna to do this. Esmeralda's mother began telling everyone to look at what they found in this common girl's pocket, accusing her of stealing a necklace. Everyone in the shop was confused as to what was happening. Esmeralda's mother was very happy because now all the attention was on Anna, and her daughter Esmeralda would be seen as a hero for catching the thief. Esmeralda thought this was very bad because if this continued, Anna would be seen as a thief. Suddenly, Esmeralda stood up and said that Anna hadn't stolen anything. Then, Lady Douglas arrived and said that this whole situation had been staged and that Anna was innocent. She claimed that Lady Ramira had orchestrated everything. Lady Ramira came and asked Douglas why she was framing her in all this, questioning if it was because their relationship hadn't been good lately. She also asked if she had a group that helped orchestrate this. Esmeralda and Rihanna were very angry. Lady Ramira was asking everyone what was happening and why these common children were brought to the party. Rihanna stood to one side, listening and wondering if Ramira was saying all this to embarrass her. Just then, the Duchess stood there thinking about what was happening at her daughter's party. Rihanna said to her mother that it was fine and she would handle everything. The Duke then told his wife that Rihanna could handle it herself. Rihanna was very angry and felt that if her mother got involved, the situation could be resolved quickly, but then everyone would think she wasn't capable of hosting a party or handling things herself. She decided to handle it on her own but thought it would have been better if her mother had handled it. She wondered why all these problems always happened to her when she just wanted to live a simple life. Now she had to handle all this. As Rihanna reached the scene, Ramira started accusing Anna of stealing the necklace. Rihanna asked if there was any proof that Anna had stolen it. Ramira said everyone had seen it fall from Anna's pocket. Anna's mother agreed, saying her daughter had caught the thief. Rihanna was puzzled and began to suspect that Esmeralda's mother was trying to humiliate her. Meanwhile, Esmeralda's mother was praising her daughter for catching the thief. Rihanna shouted that Anna hadn't stolen anything and said she would prove it. Everyone was shocked, wondering where the proof would come from. Rihanna thought that if there was no proof, she would create some because in this world, anything is possible with power. She decided to use her mother's power but was interrupted when Heath grabbed her and said he would show the proof. Rihanna was surprised to see Heath there and Heath asked her if she was going to use the Duchess' power. Rihanna assured him she wouldn't, and Heath whispered in her ear that he would handle it. Heath then went to Lady Anira and asked if she had accidentally spilled wine today. Lady Anira said she hadn't touched any wine today. Heath pointed out that the necklace had wine stains on it. He explained that a child wouldn't drink wine, and holding the necklace, he showed everyone the wine stains. Lady Ramira started spinning stories about children secretly drinking wine. Rihanna stepped forward, stating that the wine was her responsibility and no child had drunk it. Heath then said if the necklace had wine on it, the thief's clothes would also have wine stains, and that person would be the real thief. Everyone's eyes turned to Ramira, and they saw wine stains on her dress. People started whispering, calling it shameful, and Lady Ramira ran away. Rihanna wondered why Amira always caused such trouble. While she was thinking, Anna came to her, apologizing for ruining the party. Rihanna told Anna it wasn't her fault at all and reassured her. Lady Annery also apologized to Anna, saying she was sorry for misunderstanding her and not keeping an eye on her class, leading to this accusation. Rihanna thought it was the first time a noble had spoken so politely to a commoner. Rihanna also apologized to Anna, saying she was sorry these things happened at her party. Annery tried to end the matter politely, saying they should start the children's presentation now. She placed her hand on Anna's cheek and encouraged her to give a good presentation to make everyone forget about the incident. Anna was excited and promised to do her best. Rihanna turned to Heath, thanked him, and complimented his detective skills. Rihanna, with a mix of curiosity and bewilderment, asked Heath how he knew there was a wine stain on the necklace. Heath, momentarily taken aback, wore a look of confusion before he replied that he had happened to see the waiter spill the wine. Rihanna stared at Heath with a puzzled expression, her eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to discern something more. Despite her curiosity, she chose not to investigate further. Instead, she smiled and told Heath that he was just like Sherlock Holmes, praising him for his keen observation and quick thinking. She lauded him as amazing, her admiration evident in her tone. While all this was happening, Killian stood at a distance, his eyes fixed on the interaction between his sister and Heath. He observed every nuance of their conversation, a slight smile playing on his lips, his thoughts a whirlwind of considerations and emotions. Killian stood there, deep in thought, reflecting on the events that had transpired. He considered his actions, thinking that he had only done what was necessary. In his mind, there was no other way. Heath was a person of high status, someone whose words and presence carried significant weight. Killian saw Heath as a formidable figure, someone who could step in when his sister was in trouble. He believed that Heath was the only one who could confidently protect Rihanna in times of need. From a distance, the king of Krija, standing with one of his men, observed the scene. He discussed with his companion the potential of Heath becoming the prince. The king noted that if Heath were to assume this position, there would be no issue with Rihanna becoming the crown princess consort. Rihanna, on the other hand, was reflecting on the day's events. Despite a minor commotion, her first party had concluded successfully. Not only Anna but all the other students had finished their presentations safely. The nobles, including the Marquess of Aegine, had given a round of applause. It seemed that Rihanna had also made a positive impression on the king of Krija. Exhausted from the day's party, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. She ran towards her room, eager to share the day's happenings with Killian. However, upon arriving, she noticed the room was empty. Realizing that Killian must have gone to the palace, she felt a slight twinge of happiness at having the room to herself. She laid down on the bed, her thoughts drifting to how comfortable and great everything seemed at that moment. The silence of the room, a stark contrast to the earlier excitement, felt almost soothing. Meanwhile, back at the Duke's palace, the Duchess stood with a stick in her hand, her expression stern and unforgiving. Killian stood in front of her, his posture rigid and unyielding. The Duchess gave Killian a chance to explain himself, but Killian, seemingly uninterested in offering any explanation, remained silent. The Duchess's anger was palpable. She expressed her disbelief that Killian would miss his only sister's engagement. Hiding Killian with the stick, she watched as he acted as if he was hurt, even though he wasn't. He touched the wrong place, prompting the Duchess to correct him angrily. The Duchess then began to reflect aloud, lamenting that she should have instilled good habits in Killian when he was young and impressionable. She admitted that she had always overlooked Killian's mischievous behavior and his well-being. The Duchess, her voice filled with regret, asked Killian why he had run away from home but stated that she was more interested in why he had returned. After a moment of silence, Killian confessed that he wanted to enroll in the academy. The Duchess was taken aback by his declaration. Killian explained further that he wanted to join the academy to be closer to his sister and assist her more effectively. The Duchess and the other servants exchanged glances, wondering if Killian's intentions were genuine. Killian continued, explaining to the Duchess that at the recent banquet, people had tried to trouble his sister. He informed his mother that Rihanna had stayed silent to avoid worrying her, but he was certain that similar incidents were happening at the academy. The Duchess, her concern growing, asked Killian if Rihanna was truly in trouble and facing difficulties at the academy. The servants, moved by the conversation, started crying, knowing how kind-hearted Rihanna was. They recalled how Rihanna used to worry about the rising prices of houses and the plight of common people. The atmosphere in the room was heavy with emotion, the Duchess's stern expression softening as she listened to her son. Determined, Killian assured his mother that he would go to the academy and ensure that nothing like that happened. With tears in her eyes, the Duchess accepted his request. She told Killian that he had her permission to enroll and praised him for growing up so wonderfully. Killian, feeling a sense of resolve, decided to seek his father's permission as well. He knew his mother would approve without hesitation once he mentioned his sister, but he was slightly apprehensive about his father's reaction. The journey to the Duke's study felt longer than usual, each step filled with the weight of anticipation. Killian stood before the Duke, his heart pounding like a drum. He asked if he could join the academy. The Duke, his expression inscrutable and imposing, asked Killian why he wanted to enroll. Killian replied that he wanted to participate in social events. The Duke, however, pointed out that Killian already attended events without being enrolled in the academy. They discussed the importance of other matters that were more pressing than attending the academy. The Duke suggested that if Killian wanted to broaden his academic knowledge, he could invite scholars to the Duke's estate, which would be more efficient than attending the academy. After a lengthy debate, Killian finally revealed his true concern, his worry about his sister being alone at the academy. The Duke, sensing the sincerity in Killian's voice, looked at him intently. Within moments, the Duke granted his permission, telling Killian he could leave for the academy the next day, or even today if he wished. The Duke instructed Killian to report to him daily about any suspicious individuals around Riene. He also asked Killian to keep an eye on the Krija boy to ensure he maintained a proper distance from Riene. The Duke granted Killian permission to take any necessary actions at his discretion if he noticed anything unusual. As Killian was about to leave the room, the Duke called him back. In a grave tone, he reminded Killian that the Duke's family could cover up even a murder. He urged Killian not to forget this. Killian, understanding the weight of his father's words, assured him that he understood everything before leaving the room with a determined look on his face. The encounter had solidified Killian's resolve, and as he walked out, he felt a new sense of purpose and responsibility. One bright morning, a new teacher named Ruby entered the grand halls of the prestigious academy. With a composed demeanor, she introduced herself to the students, announcing that she would be their etiquette teacher. Since it was her first day, she decided to start with a simple quiz to understand the students' current knowledge. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Ruby intended to gauge the level of the students' etiquette skills, but to her surprise, Princess Riena scored only 20 points. Concerned by this unexpected result, Ruby decided it was necessary to inform the Duke's household about the matter. This decision, however, turned out to be a significant misstep. Soon after, Ruby received an invitation to the Duke's residence. She was taken aback, as she had not anticipated a personal invitation from the famous Duke and Duchess. She had no idea what their intentions were and felt a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. Upon arriving at the Grand Palace, Ruby was escorted to a lavish sitting room where the Duke and Duchess awaited her. As she seated herself nervously in front of them, the Duchess, with a stern expression, asked Ruby how it was possible that her daughter had scored only 20 points. Ruby explained that the quiz was designed to test the young lady's table manners. The Duchess, maintaining her stern demeanor, asked Ruby if she was implying that their daughter lacked basic table manners. Ruby, now feeling the pressure, hesitated before clarifying that this was not her intention. She explained that Riena seemed unsure of the correct use of utensils, which could explain her low score. The Duchess, her expression now shifting to one of anger, pressed Ruby further. She asked if Ruby was suggesting that their daughter could not distinguish between a salad fork and a steak fork. Before Ruby could respond, the Duke intervened. He stated firmly that their daughter had never displayed improper behavior during mealtimes at home. Ruby attempted to bring up the report card, indicating that it showed different results. However, at this point, the Duchess's anger had reached its peak. She began shouting, questioning if the Academy was accusing their daughter of lacking proper etiquette. The Duke, trying to calm his wife, informed Ruby that the Duchess was on the verge of fainting from shock. He urged Ruby to provide a satisfactory explanation. Additionally, Ruby was informed that the Academy's principal had warned her that if this issue was not resolved, a new etiquette teacher would be hired for the next semester. All the teachers at the Academy were struggling with Riene's poor performance. The history teacher reported that Riene didn't even know the founding year of the Empire, and had never seen any of Sisfir's works. Ruby added that Riene used a salad fork to cut steak, which was highly unusual. Outside the door, Riena overheard the teachers discussing her shortcomings. She felt that all the teachers must be talking about her and noticed that they had started acting strangely around her. They even secretly handed her self-made cheat sheets, trying to help her improve. One day, the math teacher approached Riene. Rihanna informed the teacher that despite her lack of knowledge about the founding year of the empire, or the difference between a steak fork and a salad fork, she excelled in math. The teacher confirmed this, explaining that the academy's math curriculum was equivalent to middle school level in Korea. Given that Rihanna had always excelled in science throughout her education, even reaching graduate school, this was easy for her. The math teacher praised Rihanna, acknowledging her talent and noting that she always answered correctly in class. Rihanna felt a sense of happiness, finally finding a teacher who recognized her abilities and didn't think she was foolish. The teacher had come specifically to ask about the homework Rihanna had submitted. The math teacher asked Rihanna how she had managed to solve a particularly difficult problem, noting that solving one of the top 10 puzzles in the magical book indicated that Rihanna was a genius in math. Rihanna, however, was unaware of the significance of the problem she had solved. The math teacher explained that the problem Rihanna had solved had taken scholars years to interpret. Rihanna looked at her homework and realized that the problem was proving why the square root of 2 is an irrational number. The math teacher told Rihanna that her solution was perfect enough to be published in a journal and asked if she minded submitting it under her name. Rihanna pondered this, realizing that being labeled a genius could interfere with her plans to become a rich and ideal commoner. She told the teacher that she had not come up with the solution herself. It was something someone she knew had solved a long time ago. The person who had solved it lived a reclusive life and had social anxiety, so Rihanna couldn't reveal any more information. After explaining this, Rihanna told the teacher that she needed to go study and hurried away. Finally, the day of the midterm exam arrived. Rihanna was anxious, wondering if she would top the class in history and literature. Everything she had studied seemed to be coming together, making all her efforts worthwhile. However, she soon got stuck on an etiquette question. No matter how hard she tried, she found it difficult to answer the etiquette questions correctly. The teacher in the classroom announced that 20 minutes had passed and that those who had finished could submit their papers and leave. A few students left the room, but Rihanna continued writing. Ruby approached her and asked if she found the paper easy. Rihanna struggled to concentrate as she heard students outside gossiping. Unable to tolerate the distraction, she went outside and shouted that she was still in the middle of the exam. She then noticed that the group of students was staring at Killian. Killian greeted Rihanna warmly and remarked that it had been a very long time since they had last met. As Rihanna stepped out of the classroom, she was immediately struck by the sight of a large group of students gathered in the hallway. The bustling crowd was animated, and at the center of this gathering stood Killian, looking as poised and composed as ever. Her heart skipped a beat in shock, and she quickly made her way over to him, her mind racing with questions and curiosity. Killian's presence at the academy was unexpected, and she couldn't fathom why he was there. She thought to herself, why would Killian be here of all places? Her thoughts were interrupted as she approached him, feeling a mix of confusion and anticipation. Killian turned to her with a calm expression, and in a composed tone, informed her that starting today, he would be studying at the academy. Rihanna's eyes widened even further in surprise and disbelief. She scrutinized him, noting how well he wore the academy uniform with such ease and style, but she quickly pushed that thought aside, reminding herself that there were more pressing issues at hand. Her mind was a whirlwind of questions, one of which was, isn't Killian too young to enroll in the academy? She couldn't help but wonder about the implications of his sudden arrival. Killian, seemingly aware of her inner turmoil, smiled gently and asked about her exam. His question brought her back to the present moment. Rihanna's eyes widened in realization as she remembered the exam she had momentarily forgotten in her surprise. She quickly excused herself and hurried back to the classroom, her heart pounding in her chest. The urgency of the situation made her heart race faster. As she rushed back, Killian called after her, apologizing for interrupting and wasting her time, and wishing her good luck with her exam. After a while, Rihanna found herself standing outside the classroom with Ruby, who was holding her exam results in her hand. The look on Ruby's face spoke volumes, conveying the disappointing truth that there was still no improvement in Rihanna's results. Rihanna sighed deeply, feeling a sense of responsibility and guilt. She assured Ruby that she would contact the Duke and ensure that Ruby wouldn't be dismissed, and apologized for her troublesome parents. Ruby nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and a hint of relief. Rihanna returned to the hallway where Killian was waiting for her. He inquired about her exam with a concerned look on his face. Rihanna sighed and looked at him accusingly, mentioning the disruption caused by his noisy followers. She raised her voice, explaining that before his arrival, everything had been going smoothly, and she had been just about to write the answer when she got distracted. She paused, her mind flashing to the moment when the Duchess greeted the Empress. Killian, trying to help, suggested that if it were his mother, she would have shaken hands or patted her on the shoulder. Riene's eyes widened in realization, understanding that she was likely to fail the etiquette exam now. Killian looked at her warmly and expressed his happiness at seeing her after such a long time. Riene turned to him, her expression softening, and reciprocated his sentiment. As it was dinner time, they decided to head to the dining hall together. Killian asked if she used to eat alone before his arrival, and Riene shook her head in response. The students in the dining area couldn't help but gossip about Killian, whispering amongst themselves about how they had only seen him once at the National Foundation Festival when he was very young. They recounted tales of his impressive feats, such as being able to catch an orc with his bare hands, and admired his handsome looks. Riene, feeling increasingly annoyed by the constant admiration Killian was receiving, grumbled about his infrequent appearances in social circles. She assumed that this was the reason for their curiosity. Killian recalled a memory from their childhood, explaining that he had told his mother he hated the National Foundation Festival and didn't want to attend. He remembered arguing that Riene was supposed to make friends, not boyfriends, which had led the Duke to decide that the children had had enough social experience. From that year on, they spent the National Foundation Festival quietly as a family, avoiding the public eye. Since then, they rarely participated in social gatherings, which meant that most lower nobles had probably never seen Killian. Riene herself also avoided such gatherings. Killian then asked if people used to gather around her as well, and Riene hesitated before replying. In reality, on her first day of school, the other children had judged her for being a commoner. She looked at Killian and asked if he had enrolled in the academy just to tease her. Killian shook his head, explaining that he had a genuine reason for being there. He had been worried that she wouldn't have any friends and came to be her friend. Riene's face turned red with anger, and she stood up abruptly, declaring that she would eat with her friends and starting to walk away. Killian quickly grabbed her arm and gently made her sit back down, earnestly apologizing. After a moment, when her anger had subsided a bit, Riene admitted that she did feel much better now that he was there. She smiled slightly and suggested they finish dinner and head to the dorm together. As they ate, Riene began talking about her friend Esmeralda and mentioned that she had recently become friends with Lady Douglas. She also brought up Heath, causing a noticeable change in Killian's expression. Meanwhile, the principal, who had been informed of Killian's arrival, was in a state of panic. He rushed to Killian, tears in his eyes, and apologized profusely, explaining that they hadn't received any notice of his arrival and couldn't prepare a room for him. Killian looked at him calmly and asked if he could choose his roommate instead. Just then, a person entered the room and greeted Killian warmly. Killian smiled and asked to be called by his name. It was the second prince of Krija, Gerald Krija. They both shook hands, and Killian expressed his happiness at seeing him, their reunion filled with warmth and camaraderie. Riene was meticulously cutting a piece of paper, her hands moving with precision until she finally succeeded. It was a letter from the King of Krija, and as she unfolded it, her eyes scanned the words intently. The letter not only informed her but also mentioned that it had been sent to Heath. It stated that next month, the king intended to give the two princes an opportunity to participate in the state council meeting. The primary objective of this meeting was to devise a solution to the attacks by the Eldings, which had caused significant damage during the rainy season. The King of Krija believed that Riene, as a princess, would naturally want to assist Heath in this endeavor. He also expressed his anticipation of seeing her perform as admirably as she had at the recent charity party. However, the letter also mentioned Riene's failure in the etiquette exam. Riene thought that she had gained some favor at the charity party, but this piece of news seemed to negate all her efforts. She wondered how the king had come to know about her failure. Despite the setback, Riene understood that participating in the state council meeting was a crucial test for the crown prince position. She also realized this was the perfect opportunity to prove the value of their engagement contract. With determination, Riene set out to find Heath. When Heath saw Riene, he immediately asked why she had come all the way to the upper-class building instead of simply calling him, as he would have gladly come to her. Riene, without a word, took Heath's hand and led him to the library, indicating that she needed to discuss something important. Once they were settled in the quiet of the library, Riene showed Heath the letter she had received from the king. Heath smiled knowingly and said, "So, you finally received the letter." He explained that he hadn't mentioned it earlier because he knew how hard she had worked for the charity party and didn't want to add to her burdens. Riene, however, was resolute. She told Heath that she was determined to see him become the crown prince and that they needed to quickly formulate a strategy. Heath, while appreciative of her enthusiasm, cautioned her not to overexert herself, warning that he wouldn't attend the meeting if she did. After a few moments of silence, they began planning their strategy. The topic of the meeting was to find a solution to the Elding's attacks, but Rihanna realized she was unfamiliar with what Eldings were. The puzzled look on Heath's face made it clear that she had made another uninformed comment, showcasing her lack of basic knowledge. Heath sat down with a sigh and explained that Eldings were monsters that appeared riding on lightning. He handed her a book, an encyclopedia of monsters, and Rihanna recognized it as the book Killian used to read avidly in his childhood. As she opened the first page, she was met with a vivid and unsettling illustration of an Elding. Heath explained that these creatures were roughly the size of humans but were incredibly unpredictable. After lightning strikes, they appeared almost instantly, and if they landed on a building, they would tear off the roof and attack the people inside. The unpredictable nature of their appearances made them difficult to defend against. While nobles were relatively safe within their sturdy castles, the common folk often bore the brunt of these attacks. Curious about how the common people had managed so far, Rihanna asked Heath. He informed her that villagers typically formed their own militias, or the local lord would send monster hunting squads. It was usually one of these two responses whenever an attack was reported. Heath speculated that the meeting would likely conclude with a decision to expand these support forces. Rihanna, however, pointed out that this was not a fundamental solution. Heath sighed, agreeing with her assessment but reminding her that this was the reality for a kingdom lacking Astera's protection. Unlike the Empire, he noted that the Empire, where Astera resided, was probably the only place free from monsters. Determined to find a more effective solution, Rihanna spent many hours poring over books on Eldings. Despite her efforts, the information in all the books seemed redundant. As she read, she was reminded of the time she wrote her thesis, and the challenging yet insightful feedback from her professor. His odd personality aside, his guidance had been invaluable. This memory sparked an idea, and she immediately set out to find Killian. In the garden, Killian was practicing with a sword, his movements precise and fluid. Rihanna approached him and asked if he had ever caught an Elding. Killian, without pausing his practice, replied that he had indeed caught one. Rihanna realized she should have asked him from the start and eagerly inquired about how he had managed it. Killian, with a sly smile, asked if she wanted to know the method for free. Killian asked Rihanna if she wanted to know how to hunt an Elding, and when Rihanna eagerly said yes, he mischievously asked her if she was hoping to learn it for free. Rihanna, not missing a beat, promised Killian she would buy him his favorite macaron. Killian couldn't help but smile at her response and reassured her that he was just kidding. However, seeing her genuine interest, he decided to tell her how to hunt an Elding. Killian explained that when lightning strikes, one just needs to be there, waiting beforehand. Rihanna, ever diligent, had a notebook and a pen in her hand and was writing everything down meticulously. Rihanna's confusion grew as she tried to comprehend how one could predict where lightning would strike. She asked Killian how one would know where and when the lightning would strike. Killian, with a confident tone, told her that one can see the lightning when it flashes, and the trick is to watch the first flash, and then run to that spot before it strikes again. Rihanna found herself wondering how anyone could possibly travel faster than lightning. The more she thought about it, the more disappointed she felt. She realized she had been foolish to expect common sense from Killian. Killian, noticing her disappointment, asked if he hadn't been helpful. He informed her that it was his own specialty, and that their father also catches them after the lightning because he says it's too dazzling to see clearly. Rihanna found it hard to believe him, not even for a moment, but she thanked him nonetheless. She told him that even if his advice was not very helpful, just having him around made her feel reassured. She also mentioned that she would ask him more questions if she needed further assistance. As Rihanna left, Killian pondered over the fact that Rihanna was clearly clueless about Eldings. This was understandable, given that his father and he always burned all the monster corpses to ensure Rihanna wouldn't see them. Now, seeing Heath ask Rihanna to solve the monster problem made Killian feel a pang of sadness. He thought to himself that this princess could not be trusted. Despite his doubts, Killian was determined to protect his sister at all costs. When he saw Heath standing with Rihanna, he felt a surge of anger and wanted him to stay away from her. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a memory of the king saying that if Heath became the crown prince, Rihanna would be a perfect match to become the crown princess without any issues. Killian was far from pleased with this notion. After some time, Heath approached Rihanna and offered her a drink, suggesting she take a break from her preparations. Heath inquired if Rihanna had any plans for the next day. Rihanna, deeply engrossed in her preparation for the upcoming meeting, informed him that she would probably continue her research on Eldings. Heath, sensing an opportunity, suggested they go on a field trip instead. He pointed out that there seemed to be no more information in the library, and it would be beneficial to visit the areas where Eldings had been sighted. As he proposed this, a blush crept onto his face, but Rihanna was quick to agree as she had completed her preparations. Rihanna told Heath that she would start preparing for the field trip, but Heath surprised her by saying that he had already taken care of everything, and she just needed to accompany him. Curious, Rihanna asked Heath about what he had said earlier, feeling as though he had been hinting at a date. Heath's face turned bright red with shyness, and he started coughing nervously. He then asked Rihanna if it had been that obvious that he was asking for a date. Rihanna was taken aback and asked, "What?" Later that night, Gerald was in his room when he noticed Killian approaching. Killian saw that Gerald was reading the Monster Encyclopedia, and commented that he used to read it when he was younger. Gerald mentioned that he had been reading a lot lately but was not making any progress with his research on Eldings. He then asked Killian if he knew a lot about Eldings. Killian, with a hint of pride, responded that he knew them very well. Gerald laughed at his own question, realizing that it was obvious Killian would know about Eldings. Killian told Gerald that he knew far more about Eldings than what was written in the encyclopedia, and asked if he wanted to know more. Gerald, intrigued, said that it would be great if Killian shared his knowledge. Killian then turned around and suggested that they sleep for now, as they had to get up early the next day. Gerald thought to himself that Killian was just as the rumors described, someone who did whatever he wanted. Killian mentioned that the next day they would go to the Danube Mountains together to hunt Eldings. He also informed Gerald that there would be a storm tomorrow. The next day, on a sunny morning, Heather and Rihanna were eagerly preparing for their field trip. Rihanna, bursting with excitement, suggested to Heath that they should start by interviewing the villagers about their direct experiences with the damage. Heath, trying to manage her enthusiasm, gently told her that she was being a bit too eager. Nevertheless, Rihanna insisted that they needed to gather as much information as possible before sunset. Heath, ever patient, assured her that they had plenty of time and suggested they eat something first to fuel up for the day ahead. Rihanna agreed, asking Heath if they should start looking for a restaurant. However, it turned out Heath had already arranged everything, and a delightful spread of food was set out before them. Rihanna's mouth watered at the sight, and she could hardly believe her eyes. Heath explained to Rihanna that they needed to eat well in order to work hard. They both started eating, and Rihanna noticed that there wasn't another person in the restaurant. She guessed they were fortunate enough to have the entire place to themselves, almost as if they had reserved it. Heath watched her reaction with a smile, clearly pleased by her enjoyment. After they finished eating, Rihanna was reinvigorated and ready to dive into finding out details about the Eldings. However, Heath had different plans in mind. He suggested they visit a famous cake shop nearby, and despite her focus on the survey, Rihanna couldn't resist the idea of dessert. As they made their way to the cake shop, Rihanna couldn't help but think that Heath was allowing himself to be distracted. She asked him if they could start the survey after enjoying their treat. Heath, ever the gentleman, held her hand and led her to a nearby area where Eldings had been reported. They arrived at a picturesque lake, surrounded by a dense forest and glistening in the sunlight. Heath, still holding Rihanna's hand, observed the serene beauty of the place. Rihanna questioned whether this was really the area where Eldings had appeared. Heath explained that while the weather was splendid today, during the rainy season, thunderstorms brought lightning, and many Eldings appeared around the lake. Rihanna was taken aback, having expected something more ominous like haunted ruins or ancient sites. After taking in the stunning view for a while, Heath suggested they take a boat tour of the lake. Rihanna found the idea appealing and agreed. They both boarded a boat, and as they glided across the water, Rihanna looked down into the crystal-clear lake, seeing her own reflection. Despite the tranquility, Rihanna's mind was still on their mission. She wanted to gather useful information and prove herself as not being a burden to Heath. She started discussing the Eldings once more. Heath remarked that she was always thinking about work, to which Rihanna replied that she was the epitome of dedication. She insisted that if she didn't work hard, she might as well be a corpse. Rihanna was determined to work several times over the amount she was paid and mentioned that just as the crown prince's seat was Heath's, she was prepared to dedicate her life to their cause. Heath interrupted her, stating that he understood she only saw him as a good partner, but he wanted her to know she meant much more to him. Holding her hand, Heath revealed his feelings, which reminded Rihanna of when he hinted at asking her for a date but then changed the subject. Rihanna considered Heath a kind and good person but had never thought of him as more than a friend. Sensing her discomfort, Heath changed the topic once again, telling her that she was already doing more than enough without overworking herself. He revealed that today was meant for relaxation, not a survey. Rihanna asked if the plan had really never been about the survey, and Heath confirmed it, admitting he brought her there just to unwind. Heath confessed that if he had told her in advance, she would never have agreed to come. He encouraged Rihanna not to feel sad and to enjoy the day. Rihanna decided to make the most of the situation and thanked him. She reflected on how fortunate she was to have someone like Heath, who cared for her deeply. She resolved to bury her feelings beneath the surface once again, focusing on the moment. Meanwhile, in a different part of the forest, the weather was tumultuous with lightning striking and the wind howling fiercely. Gerald stood amidst the chaos, calling out desperately for Killian. His face was a mask of fear, and his voice trembled as he insisted that they should return. However, Killian was nowhere to be found. As Gerald turned around, he was confronted by the sight of Eldings standing behind him. The terror was overwhelming, and Gerald completely lost his composure, succumbing to the horror of the situation. As the tranquil lake tour takes an unexpected turn, what secrets will Heath and Rihanna uncover next? Will the peaceful setting deceive them? Or is there a hidden danger lurking beneath the serene surface? And amidst the storm, what fate awaits Gerald and Killian as they face the terrifying Eldings? Don't miss the next thrilling chapter. Let's see that in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.